maybe I'll be better the second time.
There you go.
The first time.
Yeah, right.
So the first manufacturing innovation that Sikorsky is looking to advance is the management of distortion that occurs during thermal processing, specifically carburization and heat treatment of gears. So we would like to eliminate it if possible. We definitely want to come up with better ways to better manage it, other than the use of using quench dyes. So we go to the next slide. And so the process that we've heard shows the most promise to do this is what's called low-pressure carburization, high-pressure gas quenching. And I'll let you folks go look up what that is. That's a whole subject unto itself. But what we have heard advertised from the automotive industry is low-part distortion, and that they don't use quench dyes. And essentially what they do is they heat treat their finished gears. They finish machine the gears, produce all the gear teeth, grind the gear surfaces, put them into this equipment, and they can spit out a finished product. We do not do that. We have at least 3 or 4 times the number of processes involved in order to get to that finished state. And but we would love to get to the state where we don't have to do that. So we talk about the next slide. Gives you a snapshot that does not do justice to the number of processes we do use to make our gears. But basically what happens today is we machine the gears, teeth, we expose the surfaces that need to have carburization done to them. They go into our carb furnaces. The carb is impregnated in there. We take the gears out. We go back into machining processes. And then once that's all done, we come back into to an atmospheric furnace, heat treat the parts again, and then we put them in a quench dye and quench them in oil. So it's a real spectacular process, but it's a very time-consuming process, and one that requires a fair amount of skill to do. What we'd really like to do is get to this low-pressure carburization process and then go immediately into the high-pressure gas quenching, which would, again, eliminate all the ancillary steps in between. Next slide. So what is at issue here is that aerospace gears are significantly different from most of the other gears that are made in other industries, right? We do a lot of weight reduction. We take off a lot of unnecessary mass, which in many cases is on automotive gears, to make the heat treat process less challenging, right? And because we have thick and thin cross sections on our gears, the heat exchange rates are different. That sets up residual stress imbalances, which cause the parts to distort. Now we force them back into shape using these quench dyes. There's big massive dyes. We just squeeze the gear in there, right, and we make it go where we want it to go. There is some spring back. That's one of the reasons why we have to spend a lot of time doing separate processes to make these things come out right. So the approach that we're proposing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this one, is to work with us to develop some specimen configurations. Again, they're replicate aerospace gears. Acquire those specimens, collect sizes, feature elements. You'd be looking for things like not just numerical measurements of thickness and things like that, but also things like concentricity, cylindricity, other features, parallelism. Again, a lot of geometric tolerances. Probably would involve measurement of gear teeth. All right, so we work like AGMA Class 15 gears, so very precise type gears. Conduct the thermal processing, and then go back and remeasure those sizes and see what the variations would be after those processes are complete. The second topic that we're talking about is to move away from press cures, where we put a tool and a part into a press and do the thermal curing of a composite part, to an autoclave cure. And what we would like to do with this, the primary goal is to have the equivalent quality, right? We get a certain quality level with press cure type components. We get another quality level, which is usually somewhat less, with the autoclave cures, using vacuum bags and things like that. What we'll be looking for is to get an equivalent quality that we get out of the press cure using autoclave approaches. So today we have tooling. All right, we made extensive investments in some of the tooling we have with these parts. One of the things that happens over time when you're heating these things and using them is that they start to wear out, particularly the top half of the mold, which tends to be the less strong and bulky part of the tooling process. So we'd like to eliminate that top half and the use of the platen press equipment, and then come up with a strategy to use the rest of that mold tool to produce parts in an autoclave environment. So here's what we'd be talking about as an approach, and again, I repeat, this is a suggestion and not a requirement. We can negotiate this. Is to look at those tooling approaches for those near autoclave processes, fabricate the tooling, and this could be something that can be done on a small scale, and we want to take a look at how we could scale it up. But again, to keep the cost reasonable, you might do this on a small scale, subscale part, conduct trials, and then perform teardowns on those parts to make sure that they conform to our quality requirements. Right, so I put my name out there as the Sikorsky contact. One of the things that I need to point out, all right, that everyone that is interested in doing the teaming should know is that before we can have any type of technical conversations, we will need to execute a non-disclosure agreement between all parties. So typically these are multi-party NDAs. They take a little bit of time to process. So if you want to do that, then we'll need to start having that conversation right away so we can process that paperwork. There also are some other concerns that you should be aware of. Most of our data is export controlled. So no foreign nationals can work on these projects, or if you're going to bring in the foreign nationals, we're going to have to do something to change the elements of the data so that there's something that's in there that's not export controlled, and that usually is not the thing we'd like to do, but I mean we can talk about that. But it becomes difficult. We don't have a license in place. We can't have any inadvertent export of technical data, right? So that's going to be important to know. That includes students, especially at universities, right? We recognize university students come from other countries and work here, but we wouldn't be able to allow that student to see that data. And we'll also have to have a conversation about how you control our data once it's in your environment, right? What are the export controls that you're going to have? So there is some administrative things we need to get through before we would enter into any kind of contract. I think that does it for me.
I believe there's 4 questions, so at least that's what I'm seeing. Oh, they were all related to the inability to hear. So given that Bill has kind of concluded what he proposes, are there any questions from anybody in the room or out on the webinar?
By the way, if you didn't hear the earlier part, I'm not sure how much came through. Okay, so if you missed it earlier, what we're going to be doing is accepting questions through the computer. So on your screen, you'll see a questions box. There's a little plus sign next to it. Open that up. Feel free to type in your question and hit send all, and we'll do our best to answer them.
So I have a question, not really a question, but a statement that if there are businesses that can do certain parts, but then there might be another business like precision manufacturer or job shop, because I heard a lot of precision and all that, we could help make those matches if we knew what was missing from the team. We have the ability to then put something out and try to get maybe even another business that can do some of that work with the main company that might be submitting. I also wanted to mention that the monies that are available always go to the small business, and then everybody else, the university, any other partnerships, are paid by the main small business that we, CI, will do a contract with to just, document that the monies are being used for this project and this purpose. So in case people aren't used to our programs, that's how they always work. With that said, again, are there, you guys, at least I have a couple of people I can actually look at. Are there any questions that you could think of that, not right now?
So Bill, I would like to understand, so in order to go deeply into the proposal writing and technical discussions, the NDA has to be signed. And once the NDA is signed, you will give us more information regarding the parts, the size, and what kind of the coatings you're expecting. Because in order to write a proposal, you will need those details. in order to propose solutions. So
Yes.
that's one.
So we would anticipate that any organization, any groups that were going to propose this would approach us, send your contact information to me, who's going to sign the NDA and all that information. I'll get the NDA executed on the Sikorsky side, sent out. And once that's in place, then we can have a meeting and we can start talking about all those things. So it'll be a mutual, and I'm anticipating multi-party NDA, which means, you know, we sign it, and somebody else signs it, and whoever the other party sign it, and we can all get together and talk. And that's how that would go. And then you'd be able to respond to the proposal. And we can address any IP considerations, anything you're going to talk about, background, foreground IP, ownership of inventions, whatever, can be all addressed at that time. But the NDA has to come first. I mean, that's just. And we're not asking people to do that ahead of time because we recognize that involves a cost, right? So.
Yeah, and I think what's important there is to recognize the complexity of what you just said, so that if a team does not want to wait very long, because there's a open and close for these proposals, to actually get that process in place. And you may actually get a process in place to get an NDA done and then decide that you're not going to, you would not want to move forward for a variety of reasons. But you've got to get at least far enough into the process so that people would be able to make those decisions.
And what Bill was stressing out, that export control, that has to be in place. So people have to think, if it's university, that it has to be American students, how you secure that, so you have the locked room, where is the equipment, who has access, how you control all of that. So, so it has from the facility and operational point also to be addressed.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And again, that all takes time. So I would encourage, university and small business to move on this first step as quickly as possible, because if you can't get past those, then but you need to get past those to get into the real program itself. Again, we've never done anything like this, and because we like to be innovative, we walk the talk. So we're willing to work with the program as well, should it be, time-wise or whatever, because we're not really sure. But what we won't do is extend the time because some business didn't decide or the university didn't decide to get to it for 60 days, and now you've got 10 left. That's not going to fly. But if we see actual people trying to get together and negotiate and work it through and all that good stuff, which we'll be monitoring, then we'll see what we can do. But people have got to know that we expect them to get moving as quickly as possible if there's in fact a sincere interest. Do we have a question?
Yes.
I can't see it. We're trying to get to the question. We do have a question coming in, so thank you.
Okay, the question is, assuming the appropriate NDA and other IP agreements are in place, does the course anticipate providing access to facilities for trials or other resources?
I would not plan on being able to use our facilities for this, because going into a production environment is not usually the best place to do this type of work. And so it's usually not very practical. Matter of fact, when we do this internally, we would probably take it somewhere else. So no, as far as our facilities, if you were thinking about heat treating parts there or machining parts in our facilities, that's not going to be the case. That probably would not happen. If other resources, you need our engineering expertise or materials engineers, access to materials engineers, or access to our process engineers, then I could say yes, we would be able to do that. We might even be able to indicate to get some of our other suppliers involved, right? Because we have an extensive supply chain doing the same exact thing. So, but we would have to talk about that one. But.
Any other questions? What we can do is, Roberta, why don't we move on to sort of the next pieces, but please know that if you do have a question, we'd appreciate it coming through, and then we can break our process here and answer that question.
Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process. Everything you need to know is in the RFP. It's out on the Connecticut iHub. You're probably aware of that because that's likely where you got the information to sign in. If you haven't, go to ctihub.com and make sure that you're registered and signed in. It's a very easy process if you haven't had the opportunity to do it already. So what you want to do is read the RFP, make sure you form a Connecticut team. As I mentioned, these are state resources, so we need to give them to state entities. Now, if you are a business that needs a university to work with, or if you're a university that needs a business to work with, we're going to make that available to you. Sometime next week, you'll be getting a follow-up email with very clear instructions on what to do to get your information onto the iHub so that you can start networking with each other and collaborating with each other and making sure that your resources get together. Excuse me. You both have great technology and ideas, and we want to make sure that you have every opportunity to be able to access these funds if your proposal is chosen. What you do have to be a team. After you've taken a look at everything that's necessary, you need to download, complete, and upload the application cover page only. And this is really important because even though the iHub is a very secure site, we need to set that up for you. So by sending in that application page, we'll know that we need to set a page up for you so that you can begin your collaboration, and we will walk you through that. So remember, when you upload, it's the application cover page only, no proposals yet.
Yeah, can I just jump in here? So what Roberta's basically saying is that the Connecticut iHub is, we often call it the Facebook for Business. And what that means is that the application that you send in really doesn't have any kind of private information whatsoever. It doesn't have anything about the team. It's very, because it's going to be subject to a public space on the Connecticut iHub. Once you give us that, what we then do is we set up what we call a private space, which again is like the Facebooks of the world, where you invite your friends in. Only in this case, we're inviting in business colleagues. That becomes private. No one else will have access to it. And that's why we want no proposals until the private space is set up, and then it is secured. Thanks.
Sure. I want to talk a little bit about the evaluation process. A lot of times when we do these programs, people will ask, well, what is it that people are going to be looking at so that I can be sure I have the best chances of winning? There will be a team of judges, a team of 3. 2 of those judges will be from the originator of the topic, so from the company who came up with the topic, and 1 of them will be from an outside concern. They're going to be looking for technical merit and innovation. In other words, have you demonstrated that you can do what you're proposing? Looking at your financial leverage, can you support this project financially? Can you come up with your match? And can you leverage that money in other ways as well? They're also going to be looking at market need and impact. So how important is this to the market? What's the impact it's going to have? It's going to be truly breakthrough, and what will happen as a result of your project. And finally, the economic impact. If it's commercialized, what kind of impact will it have on the state? Will it create jobs? Will it bring in revenue? Will there be some other kind of impact that's critical? So those are the things they'll be looking at. There will be a scorecard that they will be evaluating against, and that has a numerical objective score. If you reach a certain score, you're going to be put into a pool where the final evaluation will be made, and then the project will be funded. How does the funding work? As Deb mentioned earlier, the payment goes to the small company. Small company pays the research institution and any other expenses that they have. And then you'll be expected to do quarterly reports for your reimbursement. So the way it works is you'll get the initial payment up front with your contract when that's executed. And as you send in your progress reports, and those progress reports will be about performance and your budgetary progress. Are you staying on budget? What are you spending? You have to show us proof that you've actually spent what it is you say you are. Then the next reimbursement will come quarterly. So it's a 4-step process. Some of our other programs are a beginning and an end, just a first half and a second half. This is a little bit of a departure from that, and that we will be requiring 4 project reports. And finally, I want to talk about next steps. As I mentioned, as soon as we can, after the webinar is over, we'll send you a follow-up email with instructions on how to access the webinar and the recording. I do apologize that there was some trouble up front, so I'll include as much information in there as possible that's relevant that you may not have had an opportunity to hear. Excuse me. Also, sometime next week, we'll be getting you that email notification of how to get connected and form a team on the iHub. There's a way to do it. It will be electronic, but as I mentioned, if you haven't gotten out there and looked at the iHub yet, please do go and get yourself registered, get familiar with it, so that when we're ready, you'll be able to connect and collaborate right away. And finally, if you have any questions, if there's follow-up information that you need, or do you want to discuss anything at all, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can contact Deb Stancy, and her contact information is on the screen, or myself, Roberta Rossi. We're happy to help walk you through any issues that you have. If you have questions about the topic itself, contact Bill Harris. He gave you his information earlier. And again, he's happy to help as well. So we really want to see this move forward. We wish you the very best of luck in your endeavors. And that completes our segment for today. Thanks for joining us.
I will ask one more time, though. Are there any? I know there's no new questions have come in, so I'm going to sort of talk slowly, which is not my usual way, just in case. But if there don't appear to be any more questions, then, again, as Roberta said, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to working with whoever can come up with a good team. Thanks.